Hi everybody. I hope all of y'all are working with a study plan in place and are reading on a regular basis. Today's video is going to talk about the kind of strategy that you can follow for reading comprehension passages. Let's see. The first important question is when you should do reading comprehension within the verbal section. For instance, some students feel it is better to start with reading comprehension and other students feel that maybe they should start with fill in the blanks or perhaps para completions or paragraph jumble paragraphs, right? So to answer this question, we need to understand how many passages can we do together. I think if your paper has 3 to 4 passages, it is very tough to do all 3 and all 4 in one go. Ideally, I expect students to do around 2 passages together and then come back and do the third passage after some time. Some students in fact even feel that they can jump between small questions and reading comprehension passages at all times. But you need some amount of concentration. Hence, do some RC passages together and then you can leave 1 or 2 passages for the end. So my advice is that if you have a timed section, start off with reading comprehension, do around 2 to 3 passages, then do the smaller questions, and then towards the end, do one last reading comprehension passage. If it is an untimed section, then start with the other verbal questions. So it's helpful to do something easier in English and then do big passages, and then do 2 to 3 passages of RC. When you finish the entire paper and you have time left in the end which you can distribute across all sections, that's when you can come back and do another RC passage, right? So depending on whether the sections are timed or not, whether you have a 1 hour allocated to your English section or not, you may want to start off with RC or you may want to start off with other verbal questions. Great. So the next important question, how should you select your passages? It's very easy. Select something that you find easy to read. Now, easy to read will be a very individual choice. It will depend on you. You may be very comfortable reading scientific topics. Some of you may be comfortable reading business topics. So depending on the topic, depending on the writing style, I, for instance, like passages that do not contain too much detail and that have a nice flow. So these kind of passages may be heavy in content and some students may not like it. So depending on the writing style, whether it is detail oriented, whether it is smoothly written, you may choose which passages you read, right? So it's don't go based very simply on length, don't go based on whether it has too much dialogue or not. Just skim through it and see whether you like the topic and whether the writing style makes any sense, right? Another way in which you can choose is see how the questions are distributed between main idea and specific detailed questions. Let me elaborate. A passage that has a lot of main idea questions will require in-depth reading, and hence you may want to do them earlier. A passage that has, let's say, 2 to 3 questions out of 4 to 5 that are very detail oriented, you may not even want to read and you may want to attempt right in the end, right? So if a passage focuses on main idea questions which requires more concentration, you may want to do them in the beginning, and if there are a lot of detail oriented questions, you may want to do them in the end, right? So these are 2 major aspects on which you can select passages. Now finally, how do you read them? A lot of students across so many years have asked me whether they can skim a passage, whether they can read the questions first and specifically look for answers while reading the passage, right? So whether it's skimming and scanning, whether it is read the questions first, I think both these strategies do not make any sense. Let me explain. The CAT passages are typically far more difficult than your normal newspaper article. So to understand those passages, you cannot have any heavy baggage, any excess baggage in your mind. If you try to read that passage while keeping the questions in mind, your comprehension will slow down, right? So if I want to move heavy furniture into the house, the best way for me to move it into the house and place it properly is to keep the house empty. and hence the best way to read the passage is to read it properly and read it with an empty mind, which means do not read the questions first. Now, skimming and scanning, as I said, is not a good idea unless you have 3-4 minutes left, you have one passage left, and you know that okay, these are two detail oriented questions that I can quickly answer by just picking up. Then you may skim and scan. But otherwise, if you have to answer main idea questions, do not do it without reading the passage properly. So I hope this video helped you in deciding what RC strategy will work for you. I'll see you soon again. Thank you. Bye-bye.